Welcome, everybody. Today, we're going to be discussing beer travel. I've got Ruth Berman and Wesley Springer on. Who am I? I'm Doug Piper. I'm the host of Gourmet Brewing Channel, and I'm in Greenville, South Carolina, in the USA. I want to thank you for taking time to join us because we strive to make your day more delicious, one sip at a time. Now, please share in the chat. I see a lot of people already in there. I've seen, let's see, St. Paul, Michigan, Central Texas, let's see, Canada, Alex. I think you might be the furthest away so far, Alex. So if you're at Quebec, there we go, another Canadian. So please share. Oh, hey, Lynn. And Michael, Brisbane, Australia. Wow. It's first thing in the morning, I think, Michael. So thank you for joining us. We are glad you're joining. We're going to have a lot of fun here. And just a reminder, when we get through with this, if you haven't had enough, we're going to have a Zoom call for whoever wants to join us. And I'll put the link up a little later in the program. But that's a nice way to unwind and maybe finish your beers, or at least I'm going to be finishing mine out. So I want to bring on Ruth and Wes, and please, while I bring them on, please consider writing in the chat. Let them know how much you appreciate their volunteering their time with us today. Also, vote in today's polls because that really helps me shape the programming. I use this exact information to come up with our new programs. South Carolinian. Israel, but it's great to see somebody in the neighborhood. So anyway, let me tell you about who we have on screen today. I have Ruth Berman, the CEO of Beer Bond Voyage. She has over 10 years of experience providing travel and adventures. She's a certified tour director, licensed tour guide, Latam accredited agent, and a Cicerone, fellow Cicerone. Yeah, you go, girl. We also have Wesley Springer. He is the owner, founder of Paths Less Traveled, 15 years of Czech travel, and he has a home there too. In addition to vacation tours, he's created a certified curriculum for brewers to learn Czech Pilsner and Pale Ale. Is that not cool? I am dying to do that. So if you're a first-time viewer, let me just tell you a little bit about gourmet brewing. We have subject matter experts on our program, and this is the 87th free major event thanks to supporters from Patreon. We had a list of them there at the beginning, and there's just too many great folks there to mention, but I just want to tell you how much I appreciate this because it's a community-funded channel. And we are supported by the generosity of many of you through the crowdfunding site Patreon. Now, several people actually gave little spot donations, and I really appreciate those too. You have the opportunity when you sign up, you can give just a spot donation, or there's actually a donation block there at the bottom of the screen. You can click on that. So that's how I fund this, and that's how I get all this done. So I appreciate your support. Now, if you're a supporter, you also get the audio file versions. You get behind the scenes. The Patreon supporters have seen an interview with Ken Grossman. I spent 2 hours with Ken Grossman back in December. So there's some unique stuff there, and you might want to check it out sometime. So we also have a great Facebook group. By the way, and if you want to interested in the Patreon, it's that green button at the bottom of the center. We also have a great Facebook group. Gourmet Brewing. So look that up and you can do that. And quick logistics. You can follow me in the upper right-hand corner. And the handy thing about that is when I do a live event from some remote location, you'll get notified. So you never miss one. Refreshing the browser solves most technical issues. Reducing the resolution in the bottom right-hand gear symbol will help you if you got a poor connection. Share in the chat, continue sharing in the chat where you're from, and share in like your LinkedIn profile. I'll put mine in there. Love to get everybody, LinkedIn doesn't pay me anything, but I find it's a great platform. There are a lot of professionals on here, and it's great connecting with you all. Submit your questions in the Ask a Question. We will answer those in the second half, but please go ahead and put them in and vote. So the most important questions get answered first. Also, again, I want to remind you of the polls, because that's how I prioritize everything we do. And when you register, always check the auto registration. That way you'll always get an easy way on to Crowdcast. Also, I do speaking and virtual private tastings and live tastings. Now, some great stuff coming up. Again, I've asked you who you wanted, and Charlie Bamsforth was actually the top pick. Charlie is going to be with us February 9th. I don't have the registration page up yet, but he's going to be talking about accelerated fermentation and spunding. March 23rd, Martin Brungard, who was also a top pick in the group. Martin is going to be coming there, and that's the reason I'm pointing to the polls, is because I'm looking for input and the primary questions to get Martin to focus in on. April, we have Stan Hieronymus, and Stan is going to New Zealand in March, and he's going to bring back firsthand video and pictures on exploring the hop harvest down in New Zealand. And we've got Michael Tonsmeyer. Don't have the month yet, but I'm hoping it will be May. So these are exactly the people you've asked for. I'm going to keep asking for more. We're going to try and get the whole year laid out. Again, we do have a Zoom after party. I want to copy that, throw that in the paste right in the chat right quick. So at the very end, we will crank that up and we'll be on Zoom. So let's get everybody back on screen. I'm wasting valuable time. So Ruth, Wesley, excuse me. I always think ladies first, but this time, Wes, we're going to pick on you. Beer travel is really cool, and I've done a fair amount of it. I've done it mostly as a judge, though. I've actually never gone on, an organized trip, which both you and Ruth facilitate. And I think it's quite different. But why do beer travel at all? If you got all these great breweries and great beers right in town, why do you need to go to Czech Republic to beer travel? What's the benefit?
Well, it's about tapping into a history and a culture. Czechs have drank more beer per capita than any country in the world for the last 30 years. And you couldn't brew beer in Czech Republic. You wouldn't even be considered a city unless you had a brewery. So everything that we do is involving an experience. So there's always a story behind every beer, everything we do in life, and life isn't worth living without the stories. So we bring people through immersive experiences throughout beautiful Czech Republic and try to help dive into the culture, the history, and even share people with other things about how to even learn to produce such beers over here in the US or Europe or wherever you're from.
Well, Ruth, how about you?
I have to agree with a lot of what Wes said. When Wes and I met, I knew we are so like-minded in the way we think about how we set things up. We do things totally differently, but we really kind of think the same way about what's important about why do you travel, and experience is really a big part of it. But for me, I always say people first. Tell the story. Tell the story about what's the history behind it. The history is the people. The stories are the people. Everything you experience is because you're meeting people, whether it's the people behind the beer, the brewers, the people who work in the area, the people who work in the bars, or the people you're traveling with. You're always going to be traveling with like-minded people. And it's great because I'm seeing here, even in chat box, people that are on here are people that have become friends because they met on tours that we did, and becomes this community. And that was the one thing that attracted me to beer in the first place, was the community. Even you and I, Doug, you meet people and they're great people and we have things in common. So I think, number one, you're traveling for the people and the experience. And also nowadays, the fact that with all the breweries we have here in the States, It's hard to get tap space. It's hard to get shelf space in the stores. So finding these beers are not so easy. So if you want to really experience the culture and the beers of a place, it's best to have them at the source. They're fresh at the source, you know. So to experience the people, the beer, and the culture that surrounds it, to be in a place where, you know, the glassware is important to them, or, you know, there's menus full of beer and they understand beer pairing with things. That's a great experience. It's really, if you love beer, is to see it as it's seen through the eyes of the people that created that style, maybe. So I think that's why, you know, beer travel is awesome.
All right. Well, I'm going to move right into your presentation first, Ruth, if that's okay. Now, Wes, I'm going to actually turn off your camera, and then that way I can get Ruth full screen. Are you good with that? And then I'll bring you back on in just a few minutes. All right. So Ruth, where are the top spots? It sounds like you do people watching in the top spots.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
What are some of the top spots? I know you know Belgium and France better than anybody I know. It seems odd talking about beer trips in France, but let's talk about the top ones. What are the best ones?
Well, yeah. So the best ones are where you're having the best experience, really. But I you know, I'll say it's different for everybody. Let's start with that. It's, you know, everybody has kind of what are we looking for and what's my mecca. But I'd say, you know, a lot of people that come on our tours, that come on a lot of beer tours, especially if it's Belgium, Trappist is always a big thing for them. We want to go to, you know, Wesley, we want to go to Chimay, we want to go to Orval. And these are great places. You know, these are some really cool places. Orval, if you haven't been, is just stunningly gorgeous to see the grounds. You know, and I always say that, like Chimay, we go in October, typically every year. We run our tours over there. And I always say that's my fall foliage tour. You know, I live in Florida. We don't have that fall foliage that a lot of people do. And it's just, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. So Trappist breweries are a big thing for everybody. Historic, you know, it's in Belgium, you know, you can think of things historically like places like Rodenbach, but you can also, and the Trappist breweries as well, but there's places like Abbey de Roque, which, you know, in 1979, these are like, you know, they got the first, they were the first brewery to obtain a microbrewery certification in Belgium, a license to have a microbrewery in Belgium. So there's history there. And that was a family brewery. It's a father, and now the daughter is running it. And I think I have a quick picture in there, Doug, if you could pull that up, of, you know, when he started back then, there wasn't a lot of brewing equipment around. And her father, Natalie's father, made brewing equipment out of washing machine. It was a washing machine. And it used to be in the basement of the house. We'd go visit when we were visiting the brewery. And there you go. And so now she took this equipment out of there and she put it into where they have the new tasting room area. And they built out a place that you can actually go do a brew day with them. So it's pretty cool. So there's, you know, looking at stuff like that. Oh, this is another thing. So hold that thought on that picture.
That was accidental.
That's okay. As long as you have it up, I'm going to talk about these ones right here.
Oh, okay.
That's fine. So Abbey de Roque is, you know, historically just, De Dola was one of the first, you know, back then in 1980, where he took over a brewery that was 100 years old. So there's history. So people are looking for places that are historic. Rodenbach is another place that's, you know, historic, and we can talk about that later, but that's a dinner we happen to do in Rodenbach between the fooders. We do this whole dinner with candelabras and beer paired catered event, and that happened to be that picture you pulled up was a wedding that we did there. So but we can talk about that later. But anyway, so people are looking for this is historic because this was the wedding, and then you got me sidetracked with these pictures, but the wedding, we got permission to take them into the old historic part of the brewery to do their wedding picture. So that's what that is from this private wedding beercation I did. But so history. So people, you know, Trappist breweries, historic breweries, and then pubs and restaurants. There's, you know, every town has places, you know, people love the Culminator in Antwerp, and, you know, or they don't love it because they're allergic to cats like me. So I don't like to go in there too much, but amazingly long
did I
beer
hear
list.
Rodenbach is a top pick?
Rodenbach, yeah.
Did I hear Chimay in that list?
Chimay, yeah. Chimay. That's a good idea. Let's drink about Chimay.
All right. So, for those of you that planned ahead, you might have a Chimay Grand Reserve. And so I'm going to open mine. And while I'm doing it, I hope you will enjoy. I put together a little short video. I was there at Chimay a little over a year ago, had a lunch with Fabrice Borden. And that's who you're going to see in the short 1.5-minute video. And I saw some comments about cheese pairing. That's exactly what we were doing. I think that was Mark. And you'll actually be able to see my plate while I was doing more talking than I was tasting of the cheese. So look at Ruth. She's already got hers. So let's go ahead and we will kick in that video while I open mine.
Do you want the yeast deposit?
Yeah, put a little yeast on top.
You can see only on the blue label we write the year of production, 2021. Because it's the only one interesting to age in the cellar, then to recognize the year evolution, But the blue is very interesting young, but also very interesting after 10-15 years. Chimay Blue, 9% alcohol, 7% alcohol for the red. Of course, it's more complex. It's easy to drink, but you can feel the alcohol content, And this beer represents 55% of the yearly production of the Chimay beers, the flagship of the brand, It's one of my preferred because you can stay 30 minutes, 1 hour with your bottle and your glass.
Yes.
And each taste will give you something different.
Yes.
That's make the complexity and the good things of a very good beer, good balance. In the Chimay Blue, it's also the yellow fruit flavors taste, but it's more prunes, marmalade, The kind of malt we use in the recipe give the flavors, the color, the alcohol content, and the flavor. More complexity, this one. It's less bitter, but it gives you more creamy flavor.
Well, I just, Fabrice is just such a great guy to be with. I just didn't think I could compete with that.
He's so passionate, and there's nothing like watching Fabrice, pour a beer. And something I didn't mention before about why beer travels. People are, also learning experience. And one of the things we did learn with Fabrice, we tasted a 16-year-old aged beer with him one time, and he talked about the blue and what a great deal. People who are into wine, they're always cellaring their wines, but the Chimay Blue is a great beer to cellar. That's why it's called, like he said, why it's called the Grand Reserve, because you can reserve. And he said that about 5 years, it starts to really show a change in character. And pretty much like 16 years is probably where you want to stop. You want to drink it by then. But, it's not that much. It's here. It's available in the States. What a great beer to buy for special occasions is, put it down and lay it and save it for, to celebrate whatever with. So would your first tip for a great experience be don't miss beer and cheese at Chimay? Yeah, well, yeah. So, and that's, what you and I were talking about this earlier about having that experience and being able to experience that. And, you can get into the auberge where you can do the tastings. We're lucky enough that we're able to do a tour of the brewery and then have Fabrice guide us in a tasting through the cheeses and the beers. So that's nice. But my first tip for a great experience is, this, Doug, research. That's my first 5 tips are research, and research. I think you need to kind of start out with what is your bucket list? What is it you want to see? Is it Chimay? Is that there? Is it Veslater and, whatever it is, you need to know what it is. And then you need to decide how it is you're going to achieve that. Are you going to do it on your own, or do you want to go with a group? everything has its own ways of doing things. The more you're going to do things on your own, the more you really need to research and look into things like, where do I want to go? How do you get there? And now that I know the directions to get there, is it open when I'm going? Is it open to visitors? Is it open for tasting? Is it open for tours? And can I even get there? And would I have to drive? Because you don't want to be driving, you do not want to be driving when you want to enjoy Belgian beer. Let's face it, a lot of these Belgian beers are a little bit strong. They go down very easy. And, you waited your whole life to get over there to Westleden or whatever. You want to be able to enjoy those and not have to worry about driving. The alcohol limit there is lower than it is here in the States, both in Belgium and in France. And, it's just not worth it. So I think that's a score for going with an organized tour, or at least making sure you have a designated driver when you're going. But again, access, research, figure out where it is you want to go. Do you know how to get there? Do you know somebody? Do you know somebody over there that can help you get into places and do things? We were talking about Chimay earlier, and we're lucky enough that we're able to do tours in there, but that's not always the case for everybody. And so that may be, if that's something else you want to go, maybe you want to find an organized tour, or see if you know somebody that maybe can help you get access to something. That's just really, I think, key on things. There's also Belgium and France. There's days that places are open and places are closed. For example, in Antwerp, Mondays, De Koning, the city brewery, is closed. That's a great place to visit, though, if you're staying in the town, and you can take a tram there, public transportation when it's open. Public transportation. It has a self-guided brewery tour. It's fabulous, right?
While you're talking transportation, is a boat an option?
So yeah. So so we do that's a whole different thing about the day-to-day versus the overall tour. So we do our tours on a barge in Belgium. And
can I share your video right quick? Because people won't believe it.
Yeah, this is the happy time. This is early. This is an early morning sail.
This is cool.
So this is just heading out of Bruges one morning. So we do a little sail before we pick up a coach to head out to where we're going. And there's nothing like it. It's really nice. I mean, cruising on a barge is very different than an ocean cruise or even a riverboat. I mean, you can see how close we are to the side, and a lot of time we're passing farmland. Sometimes we even pass, the pillboxes from the war, which is kind of cool. But this was just a beautiful, calm, foggy morning, and it's awesome. And it's also nice to be on the barge, because if you're somebody who doesn't like to pack and unpack, your stuff is there. We go out during the day. We either walk into the town or we take a coach to wherever we're visiting. We come back, dinner's waiting, our stuff is there. And that's something I wanted to bring up, talking about how you travel, because, one of the reasons a lot of people go over there, or one of the things a lot of guests do when they go over, is they pick up beer to bring home. There's beers that we can't get back here. So if you're traveling with beer, these are things you need to think about. Are you moving fairly often during your tour? Are you schlepping this stuff around with you? And how are you going to get it home? You should consider that. Are you bringing extra luggage? We've had guests throw out their clothes so they could put stuff in their suitcases. We've had guests go buy other suitcases. Shipping is not cheap from Belgium. And so a lot of people do bring it back and pay for the extra suitcase if they don't have that weight. There are suitcases that you can get that carry beer. There are ways to pack. We actually have a little article on our website called to ship or to schlep, which talks about packing up your beers. But it's something to think about, is how you travel and what you're going to do. Why are you going over there? Are you going over to bring home glassware and beers and bottles and stuff? And how much weight do you have? Can you carry home? So those are all things you need to really consider when you're planning a trip over there, regardless how you're traveling. So, yeah.
So Ruth, based on your experience, and I know you've done both, I guess it's kind of two different trips if you go either solo or with a group. Could you contrast that? Because I know it's kind of depends on what you want, but
Yeah.
Would you contrast that?
I think it, what are the experiences you're looking for? There's certain things we create on our tours, and I think every tour operator does this, is we have a different ways of traveling and certain experiences that we're able to create as a result of the relationships we have and what's ideal for us, what we think is the coolest thing you can do. Like, for example, that dinner we do in Rodenbach, that's not a cheap thing. It's an event. I have to have a certain amount of people to do it. I bring in caterers. It's a whole thing. So, but that's a cool thing. It's when you come home from a trip, what do you have left of those memories, the stories you're going to tell, right? So things like that, you're going to get on an organized tour. If you're a biker, there's people that do bicycle tours, right? So that may be the way you want to travel. If you're going on your own, the biggest thing is you need to do that. You need to do that research in advance and say, what is it I want to do? And if you're comfortable just kind of going with the flow, that's great. But, reservations, research, look up the places you want to go, use sources. We have a lot of sources on the internet. You give a lot of great information, Doug. Here you go. Good Beer Guide to Belgium, right? Books like this that'll tell you places to visit and things like that. Right? There you go, right?
Oh, hold yours up for Tim.
Yeah.
He's a fellow beer judge.
So, I met Tim at BBC and Joe. So, it's what are you looking for? Somebody, I see Wes talking about shoes. They're talking about shoes for packing. Here's something else to know is you need to know these certain things about brewery tours. Like certain breweries will give tours, certain breweries won't give tours, but also following even further is there's rules, there's things you need to know. You can't go, you have to dress properly. You have to have the right attire. Certain breweries won't let you in without closed toe shoes, right? And you certainly don't want to, oh my God, one time we were in Duvel and there was a group from Italy. It must have been some business group. It was not, or maybe because Italy's more fashion conscious. I don't know, but there were women in dresses with high heeled shoes climbing up and the steps with the whole, it was just, so there's things you need to think about that if you're good at doing all the research and preparing for that, great, go on your own because then you can go with the flow you want. But research and double check things. And then regardless of whether you are going with a group or you are going with yourself on your own, my biggest PSA here is travel insurance because stuff happens. That's my abbreviated version of that whole thing that I can go on about hours, but especially in today's day and age. So those are my top tips and my thoughts on.
Well, and Ruth, you'll share more when everybody answers the questions in the second half. So I'm sure everybody's got questions. Pop them in the Ask a Question. We'll get that in the second half. But Ruth, before we transition to Wes, I would love to know maybe one of your most favorite beer travel experiences or places. Can you just share one short story that
oh my God
is your favorite?
I'm going to share a story that I wouldn't even say is like my favorite experience, but is just a funny example of knowing people and being prepared. How's that? So we visit St. Bernardus, and we've been visiting St. Bernardus since it was a tiny little, not tiny little, but much smaller than it is now, and touring through there. And we've watched it grow, like we've watched a lot of breweries grow over time. And one day we're headed over there with our group and our coach, and there's construction going on, but there's only one way to go. It's local traffic. And so we take the coach into the local traffic thing, and this big crane thing is coming, with a crane that goes all the way 360 all around. And our bus driver pulls over to the side of the road to let the crane go by. The crane comes along and goes right along and cuts like the side of the bus like a can opener, not into it, but just along it. The bus driver gets out. The guy from the construction guy comes over and starts yelling at my bus driver and telling him it's his fault. He's got to call the cops. Long story short, the cops say, you have to wait there now. And I'm like, we have an appointment a kilometer down the road at St. Bernard's. We can't stay here for you to wait for the cops. Thank goodness, because I'd been working with them for so long, and I knew that people over there. I called over, and Anne was working the time in the office, and Julie, who's the CEO, Hans's daughter, Hans owns the brewery. Julie and Anne came over in their cars and brought my guests over, 3 and 4 at a time in their own cars. And they're like, how's that? We have full service from the owner of the brewery bringing us over to the brewery so that we could do our tour in time while the bus driver dealt with everything. So it's always good to be prepared and make sure you have contacts everywhere you're going. And it's great. And they're all great people. And, the best part of everything really is the people we meet along the road and all of our guests, the community, really. So.
Well, I love that story. I hadn't heard that one. But before we go to Wes, cheers.
Sante.
All right, Wes, I'm going to get you back on screen, and we'll give Ruth a little break till we get to the questions. Ruth, I'm going to turn off your camera. We'll see you in a minute. Well, Wes, you didn't have a Chimay, did you? But I bet you had some Pilsner Urquell.
You're damn right. So Pilsner Urquell is one of my favorite beers, and for good reason. Most people don't realize there are actually other beers that come from Czech Republic other than Pilsner Urquell, as it is by far the most popular beer. It is actually in history one of the most revolutionary beers that people ever have touched with today, because it was actually the first ever pale lager beer made by Josef Grohl in 1842. And it's still made over 180 years later the same way that it was back then. So.
Well, speaking of that, I think you had suggested the best way to get started was to have a Pilsner Urquell.
So do
you happen to have one?
I brought my glass, brought my passless travel bottle opener, and we'll pour it.
All right. Well, I've got a short video that I'd like to play, and this was sent to me by Pilsner Urquell's head brewer emeritus, and Wes, you've been helping me with the pronunciation because you said that I've pronounced it wrong. So remind me one more time before I say it. Václav. Okay, I'll get it. So for those of you that have endured me pronouncing it wrong, and I'll have to apologize to Václav. Anyway, Václav, I've gotten to know, great guy, and he put this video together. And for those of you that saw one event back in the fall, I had showed it back then. I've edited it down just a little bit. But I think you'll enjoy this while you're opening your Pilsner Urquell.
And what we observe by tasting, of course, firstly, we are looking for the color. Nice golden color, creamy head. Then we try aroma. In aroma, you can feel a little bit malty tones because we are a higher portion of residual extract. You can feel Salzhops. And a little bit tones of diacetyl and caramel, which are characteristic for Pilsner Urquell. There are no fruity tones or very low level. And then we try to taste the beer. Nice, very pleasant bitterness is the first, in the first sip. But the bitter taste is very well balanced in short time the sweetness of this residual extract. And both these parameters are leading to another sip. And this is drinkability. Enjoy it.
I'll tell you, love talking to that guy. He is a poet. And Wes, cheers.
Azravi, which means to your health.
Thank you. Well, What are some of the top places you recommend in the Czech Republic? I'm dying to hear this myself.
So when we first started Pass Less Travel, we started because most people's visions of Czech Republic begin and end with Prague. And unfortunately, their travels do too. And what we found is that throughout Czech Republic, beers are somewhat regional. The only thing that's actually throughout the entire country you can get anywhere is Pilsner Urquell. And believe it or not, the beer is classified under a type of beer called Světlý Lažák, which means pale lager. And that beer in itself, though, is actually the only beer that they will call Pilsner. So if you order a Pilsner in Czech, that is exactly the beer you're going to get. There is no other Pilsner. So, of course, the first thing I have to say is Pilsen, because the Pilsner comes from the city of Pilsen. In that city, it's kind of funny, there were 13 people who had brewing rights. And this is in the 1800s. And you could not be a city, like I said previously, unless you had a brewer or you were able to brew. And you couldn't brew without brewing rights from the king. So he eventually came to the conclusion that his brewers sucked, though. He didn't like them. And he wanted to get everything under a uniform brewery. And he went ahead and hired a gentleman named Josef Grohl and put everything under that. So we actually go there to that city. We visit the wells of the 13 families that actually had the original brewing rights. What actually served as shelter during the original Siege of Pilsen, which was the first major battle in the 30 Years' War that raged through Europe. So when we joke, we say that beer saves lives, because it actually did. Without those tunnels, many people would have died. So we get to visit those tunnels, and then we get to go visit the brewery itself. And when you get to visit the brewery, what you get is actually this Pilsner Urquell, but in a different way that you can't ever get it anywhere in the world. He was downstairs Václav was in the downstairs in the cellars of Pilsner Urquell, where the brewery where it was actually brewing beer in the original 1800s. And they still brew beer down there today. And what they brew is an unpasteurized, unfiltered Pilsner Urquell. That the only place you can get it is by taking that tour and by going down there. So I obviously would recommend that, because it is a once-in-a-lifetime experience. If you've never experienced it, it is by far the best beer I've ever had in my entire life. So aside from Pilsen, there's the other beer, České Budějovice, which some people may or may not be familiar with, but I'm sure you've heard of Budweiser. So Budweiser, actually, or Anheuser-Busch, copied the recipe of Budějovické Budvar, and they brought it here to the U.S., and they have patent battles. So they brewed beer over there in the 1400s, and they had no need for a patent, but the Anheuser-Busch patented their formula, and later on watered it down and changed it. So if you ever would like to try Budweiser the way it was originally brewed, which is actually very good beer, nothing like the Budweiser you would get over here in the U.S., it is very good. And we like to bring people there so they can taste that and experience the culture and the history that actually goes behind that. Now, we're also big fans of craft brewing. And what people may not know is there's actually a brewery over there called Bernard. And Bernard is one of my favorite breweries. As a matter of fact, it is my favorite brewery in all of Czech Republic. It's owned by a gentleman named Stanislav Bernard. And he is actually the president of the Czech Brewers Guild. And they had a lot of adversity in starting up after the late 80s, when communism fell in Czech Republic. And it became Czechoslovakia. Then in 91, it became Czech Republic. There was a lot of tumult, and they had to build this place up. And it has an amazing story and amazing beer. And I love the fact that what Ruth said before is history is the people. And I love that, and it's true. And so that man is a hero. And I really enjoy bringing people to his brewery to enjoy that. We also like to bring people to the Beskids, because the Beskids is actually where my wife is from. And in the Beskids, there's a very popular beer there called Radagast. And I actually have a statue of Radagast right here. And he has a statue over there. It's actually a 15-foot stone statue of him. He's the Slavic god of hospitality. And on that mountain, which is his mountain over there, there's a statue of him. And we like to walk the ridges after taking a beautiful and scenic ski lift. I believe I might have given you a video of the ski lift. If you pull it up, you can see it. This is the sites there. But we like to go there and show that.
I think, Wes, there was just one video, and that was the one of the castle. Is that what you want?
Oh, that wasn't the same one. That's all right. I'm going to play that one too. But yeah, that we also go to. That's one moment I'll go there. But the in the Beskids, when you go to that mountain, we love to go there. And then when we're done hiking the mountain ridges and having a beer next to the Slavic god of hospitality, his beer and his mountain, we go to a fantastic beer spa. And if you've not been to a beer spa before, there are some amazing beer spas in Czech Republic and amazing experiences that we like to bring our guests through that you really can't experience in other places of the world. And of course, to bring in, again, history and experiences, a lot of people aren't aware. Franz Ferdinand was the Archduke of the Austrian-Hungarian Empire, and his assassination in Sarajevo is what actually sparked World War I. Well, most people aren't aware that he had a summer house in Czech Republic. And he was an avid brewer. And so Franz Ferdinand, in his summer house, we visit his brewery. We visit his malt house, which, believe it or not, his malt house, the floors there are the number one exporter of Czech malt in the country. And we actually get to go to his castle on custom tours and on other tours. We brought several groups to be able to see the actual bullet that was used to assassinate him and start World War I. So very, very chilling, very amazing history that we like to integrate through these tours. And so those are some of our top spots. Ferdinand, Beskids, Humpolets, České Budějovice, and Pilsen. When we're talking about beer travel, those are the best beer spots, without a doubt.
So I've got those pictures up. I don't see the ski slope, unless this is
maybe the file size is too big. It's fine if it's not there. It did have I had one that I tried to send at a ski lift. If you go, so that is the mountain range right there. That is actually the mountain range we hike. You can say it's not incredibly difficult to hike it. But we walk that little trail that goes over the top there, and it will lead us to the beautiful vistas that are further on. And there's the statue of Radagast on his mountain, and it is a beautiful. Behind where that person was taking that photo, there's actually a viewing area where we like to step out on. It has kind of a touristy, gimmicky thing, but it's great. It has a glass bottom. You can step out on it over the mountain and get your thrills on. There's a beautiful, classically preserved town there that we go to called Puszczewny. This is Stromberg. This is there's a beautiful beer spa in Stromberg. If you look at you'll see a picture of it. There you go. That's the viewing area right there. You can step out onto that. There is so this is although in Moravia, which is in eastern Czech Republic, away from Pilsen. We go to the castles, the upper right. The White Castle is Castle Hluboká.
I was trying to get back to that. Sorry.
No worries. Yeah, so that's you can see the views at Alberts. And that's not necessarily the clearest day, but they are really great views that you get. And we integrate beer in through a cultural experience. And again, beer is not about, I would say, it's not about the beer, right? It's about the experience. It's about the culture. So like wherever you go in Czech Republic, you're going to find something called hospodka. And hospodkas are like your corner pub. They're the center of Czech culture. And so every city has kind of their beer that they have in that area that's specific to that region. So it's one of the things that, for instance, Ruth was touching on, was being able to travel around and actually experience the beers from different regions versus, and here you just go to a bar and you order whatever beer you want or they have on tap. There it's very different. They'll have beer set in degrees, 10 degrees, 12 degrees, 15 degrees, and ready to serve right there. And it's funny, I was just talking to someone recently that grew up there, and he was explaining to me that like they love their beer with a good head on it over there, and they had what was their equivalent to a dime, and they used to have it to where they would put the dime on the foam, and if it fell through, the beer wasn't good, they wouldn't even drink the beer. They take beer very seriously over there, and for good reason. It's really, really amazing. So yeah, can you show the video of the drone footage?
Yeah, you ready to do that next?
Yes, sir.
All right.
For instance, question. Take a horse-drawn carriage. We're there to this castle. Our first day of the tour. And that castle itself is actually the castle that used to house the Holy Roman, the crown jewels of the Holy Roman Empire, and the Holy Roman Empire's pinnacle and peak. So a lot of the Crusades were launched there. Being a Florida boy, born and raised, my wife is Czech. I went there and I saw an alligator, for instance, an alligator skull, and I thought to myself, man, I can't get rid of these things. And so when we were there, I said, what's this? And they said, well, this is from one of the Crusades. I forget the gentleman. Someone that went off on a crusade and slayed a dragon, and you can see where the sword had impaled in the head of this alligator that was on display there and inside of the castle and the tour. It really is an amazing tour. So I know that we had talked about maybe talking about tips when traveling to Czech Republic and some of the things I would always tell you, if you're drinking beer, if you love to drink beer, you probably have to use the bathroom occasionally. If you are not buying something from someone, they will ask you for money for it. So I always say, grab your pocket change and keep it with you. Usually they want 20 koruna, which is 20 crowns, is a typical going rate, especially if you're in Prague for using the bathroom somewhere. So it's something always to bring with you. Another thing is Czech Republic has a 0% tolerance. If you have one beer in Czech Republic, you're considered drunk or over the limit, even though they drink more beer per capita than any country in the world and have for over 30 years. The country itself, though, for driving has zero tolerance. They do have a lot of non-alcoholic beer options. And I will tell you that the non-alcoholic beer options there are very flavorful and very good. They're not like the non-alcoholic beer options that I've tasted here in the U.S. I'm a family guy, so when I go over there, sometimes I have to say I'm driving tonight, and I make sure to, especially if I'm on a tour and I'm the driver there, I had to try the non-alcoholic options, and they're actually really good. And I wish that the beer here in the U.S. would kind of catch on and try to make the same thing. So this is why we're at right now, and actually part of the reasons why we're actually created our Czech Lager University, which we can touch on a little later on. When you're traveling, always make sure that your passport is valid for at least 60 days beyond your date of travel. They will not let you in. You will not be able to get there if your passport will expire in the next 60 days. There are no travel restrictions related to COVID. They're not requiring a vaccination over there. They're not requiring testing. You can form your own opinions on that, whether you're for it or not, but that is what the country is requiring right now. There are no restrictions at all. I also like to say that another thing is again, Ruth had touched on it, and it was great to her to mention the actual breweries themselves. The temperatures, to be able to understand that some of the breweries, when you go in there, they get cold inside of the breweries. It gets cold in there. I always like to mention that not all brewery tours are the same, and English tour does not always mean English tour. Sometimes English tour means that you get a pair of earbuds in your ear and an app that you download, but it doesn't always sync with what you're doing. So that's why when we provide our tours, we make sure to provide a guide that's there that translates live with what's actually happening on site. So you're very aware and you're getting relevant data. It's very, very good to know that when you're in, for instance, the Pilsen Underground that I was mentioning earlier. I think, another thing we talked about for solo and group travel tips for, again, it depends on how you're traveling, whether you're traveling with a family, whether you're traveling with friends, and what you're looking to get out of your travels. But I will tell you that never ever miss the attempt, the opportunity. I love the fact that that I was talking to Ruth the other day, and she called it beer hunting. She said that Mike loves to guide her tours in Belgium and do beer hunting at night, and I love the term beer hunting. So, but we never called it that. But what we do is we go to the local haspukas and really just enjoy the real culture of the real people that are there, authenticity. And that's really another reason that we want to do our tours, is to have and experience that authentic, real people, the warmth that comes from them. And you really get a feel for the country in itself because of the people. Another thing to know is that castles, if you're going to go to castles, there are more castles per square mile. The highest castle density in the world is in Czech Republic. And that being said, castles, though, are closed on Mondays. A lot of people don't know this. So they go over there and they're expecting to go on a castle tour, but castles are closed on Mondays. So if you try to plan something and you're going to go to a castle, you're going to be let down. And there are only a couple castles, there are a handful, maybe 12 or so, that are actually open throughout the entire country in the winter. So there are seasonal aspects that we should, again, Ruth had said, plan, or research, or get with an expert that is actually knowledgeable, can help you develop your tour for you. So again, you get a lot of beers that aren't available. I mentioned Bernard. I've only been able to procure Bernard over here in the U.S. a couple times. One of the best beers that I like to turn people on to, if it's available to them, is Krušovice. It's a very good. They have a very nice Krušovice Chimay, which is a dark beer. You can get this at some places throughout the U.S. And I actually love to go to the Brewers Guild. It's one of my favorite things to pour there at different brewing events when we're having our tent, etc. I think that's about it. The one other thing to talk about was favorite travel experiences, right? Or there's another thing.
Well, I'd just love to hear. I mean, you and Ruth both have talked about all places we would just kill to go to. So you've got to have a favorite that you really, if you could only pick one thing to do while you were in the Czech Republic, what would someone with your experience, what would it be?
I love being outdoors. So I told you the Beskids, and for a good reason. I almost get emotional talking about how beautiful that area is to me. It really is amazing. And when you get to experience it and the warmth of the people there, Czech Republic is split into two regions, Moravia and Bohemia, and there's actually kind of Silesia, which is in the upper right-hand corner. But those Moravians are very warm people and so hospitable. And we went to, give you a great example, the town of Mikulov, and that's in Jižní Morava, which is in south eastern Czech Republic. And this is not a beer experience; it's a wine thing. But I'll just tell it anyways. We were there, and it was so cold outside, and we got this hot chocolate at this shop there, and it was the best hot chocolate I've ever had in my life. It was literally like someone had melted chocolate down, and I was just literally just sipping on melted chocolate. And we were there, and the guy heard me speaking English and came over and wanted to give me his best. So he gave me these plums that were soaked in Slivovitz, which is a type of moonshine that is made from plums. And I tried it, and it was delicious. And then we had a wine we were talking about there, and I tasted the wine. And at that time, that wine was the best wine I've ever had in my entire life. And I asked him if I could buy a bottle, and then the gentleman started telling me that and apologizing for the pricing of the wine because it was such a small yield. The price is high. Ended up being roughly about $20 for a bottle for the best wine I've ever had in my entire life. So I bought 5 bottles, and he was jumping for joy and ecstatic, and it was just one of those things that just kind of really helped out. I got to come back, and I shared those bottles with friends and family, you have to try this wine. So that was a really great warm experience just from the people there that was just not planned. It's one of the things you just can't plan.
$20 for the best wine you've ever had sounds like
I know.
quite a special experience.
It was so good. It was so good.
Well, Wes, thank you. And we've got a lot more questions for you. I see about 8 that have gotten in there so far. Please go ahead and post your questions. And if you don't have a question, vote up with the one you want to hear the answer to, and we will answer that first. We'll get to that right at the top of the hour. What I wanted to do right quick, I've got a couple of really short videos on other options that there is for travel. So there's 3 of them. I'll briefly come on screen between each one to describe to you what they are. So, Wes, I'm going to take over the screen for just a moment. And so the first one is Owen Ogletree down in Florida runs Brutopia tours. So I thought I would play a quick clip from Owen. All right, let's see. Didn't do that very well. There we go. Wrong button. Did right exactly what I told it to. The next one is from Zephyr Vacations, and Alan sent me this video. They're also associated with Brad Ring and BYO, and they have some great trips. I know they have some cycling trips, although I don't think it's pictured in this one. All right, and our last one is a domestic trip, and you might not think of this, but a lot of you made it possible for me to be on the governing committee of the Brewers Association, American Home Brewers Association, and an event I'll be at, which will be HomebrewCon, and that's in San Diego, one of my favorite places, great beer town, and I thought I would share just a little brief video on that, really short. So I think Ruth summarized it rather well. And Ruth, I'm going to turn on your camera, hopefully successfully. There we go. That's better than I did earlier tonight. And a quick reminder that go ahead and vote up your questions, and so we can get to those. Put your questions in. You can put them in at any time, but we're going to start answering them now. And for anybody that is interested, we're going to have a Zoom call afterwards for anybody that wants to jump on there. I don't know, Ruth, if you or Wes have time. You think you can jump in on the Zoom call briefly?
For a little bit, I guess. Sure.
No pressure.
I don't have Wes. I know Wes has a little bit of a home commitment.
Yeah, I'm actually a dad of a 5-year-old triplets. So I'll stay on for a little bit, but I would like to mention that I think Ruth and I both had some extra offerings for your listeners that we'd like to let them know about as well. So,
well, would you go ahead and share those details, Wes?
Yes, absolutely. For all the listenership here, I've actually created a user code, Gourmet Brewing. If you go to pathlesstraveled.com, 2 L's, you'll be able to get and see of our tours. I will also drop a link in for our Czech Lager University, which we just created in order. It's a certificated curriculum for people to be able to take very hands-on and learn everything Czech brewing for Pilsner and Pale Lager beers, from the sourcing all the way through pouring. And using Gourmet Brewing, you'll be able to get a $300 discount if you book tours or the course before February 28th. So I'm going to put the links into the chat. And if you guys would like, feel free. If you have any questions, reach out to me. But you guys are able to have everything. And that's for the listenership here for Gourmet Brewing.
Well, that's great. Thank you much. Ruth, you look like you wanted to say something.
Well, I just have to say, like, when Wes told me about this program he has, I was like wowed by it. I just think it's really cool. I'm not a brewer. I think I'd make myself insane if I was a brewer, because I want to do this, I want to do that, I want to do everything. But if I was, this would totally be my thing. And it's awesome that he has such a deal going on. Such a deal, like we say in Florida. Somebody else, But yeah, I don't have anything as exciting as him, but I do have a partnership with Visit Flanders, who is always looking to bring more people back to Belgium. And they did give me 2 vouchers to give out. So we don't have a lot of space on our tours. We have a limited amount because we work a little differently than Wes. We have specific tours at specific times of year, unless we're doing a private tour. So we have a few tours going in Belgium. We actually have 3 tours going in Belgium in October. One of them is our Amsterdam to Bruges trip. One of them is our new itinerary we have with Pete, who's on, Pete Schlossberg. We're doing a beer and chocolate tour, which is incredible. And I'm still trying to take off the weight from all the work when Pete and I were researching this in November. We're doing all kinds of chocolate tastings and workshops and things, along with beer and chocolate pairings. But and then we have our Belgium and France, where we do the Rodenbach dinner and we go to Chimay. And so Visit Flanders has given us 2 $250 off per cabin vouchers on those. So the first 2 people that book in the next whatever, those will be available to them. So not as exciting as Wes's deal. Well, they are as exciting, but only for 2 people. Our website was up there. I'll post it again. But yeah, we're really excited about what's coming up. And yeah, thank you for the opportunity to share that. I was pretty excited about the
Pilsner University thing. And then my wife heard about the chocolate and beer. And she's kind of like, I don't know. I think that one beats it. Plus my friend awesome. Pete's there. So
yeah.
Let's move to the questions. And again, vote up your question. So the number 1 question is right now is Ruth. Yes. Do you do any USA tours?
I do, actually. I'm going to be near you pretty soon, Doug. I have an Asheville tour that we do every year. We are going to be in Asheville the 17th to the 19th over President's Weekend. And so we do these beer safari weekends. We do one in St. Augustine, Florida every year. We do in Asheville. We've done them in DC. We do sometimes in Tampa. We were actually, our very, very first tour over a decade ago was Tampa, before our first Belgium tour the same year. And we were the first people to bring a tour to oh my goodness. This is what happens when you're drinking.
It's okay. But you'll remember it in a minute.
I will, when it's too late to say. But anyway, we run tours in Tampa. We've done California. We're coming back to DC pretty soon. So yeah, we do them. And we also will do private tours. Cigar City was what I was going to say before I drank all the Chimay, by the way, was where we were. Yeah. So Asheville's Mardi Gras. Oh, yay! Chad is saying, I don't know. Is it the Asheville Mardi Gras parade is February 19th? That's fabulous. So if any of you are there or in the area or coming with us, the Mardi Gras parade is really, really a lot of fun. And it's February. It's a day the tour ends, so we'll be there for that. So yeah. So bonus.
And I see my friend Jan there in the chat.
Hi,
he
Jan.
was kind enough to take me around some amazing places in Brussels, and we actually walked past the Beer World building, which wasn't open yet. So that'll be neat. So
That's the
I
Bourse,
guess-
right, Jan? The old Bourse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that sounds like the Brussels Beer Challenge. Maybe it'll be open.
Awesome.
I hope. Maybe we'll get a special tour. All right. Next question. Jan asked, is a week long enough for visiting Czech breweries?
Yes, it is. Now I'll tell you, if you want to see more, I recommend adding a little extra time, because I always try to, even on we have a 6-day, 6-night breweries, castles, and countryside tour. I posted it in the links, but I will tell you that it's a pretty fast-paced tour. That one is. I always try to tell my guests to try to get in a day or two early on that one. If they want to be able to kind of adjust the time zones and be able to enjoy it entirely. So even if you're going to be there for 6 days, maybe get there a day or two, but a week is enough. But I can tell you, I would probably try to extend it a couple more days if possible. But we did realize when we were making ours that a lot of working people are going to want to have it. So that's why we made it for that 6 days in order to try to fit in and show them as much as possible.
Well, I like that. And just switching gears slightly to another country, I see Jan is some questions about the Belgian Beer World there in Brussels. Jan, if you've got a URL you can paste in there, I bet that would help, because I'm not sure I would know how to answer the questions, except you just escorted me past the front of it. We will do the next one. Next question is, and I think this one's for you, Wes, how are Americans received in the Czech Republic? In other words, do they like us?
Yes, they love us. So it's changed. I've been going there for 15 years, so it's changed considerably over 15 years. When I first went there, I was just dating the woman who's now my wife, and everyone was crazy because I was the new American, and it was incredible. But what's happened is they're actually teaching English now in the school systems as a second language. So the older generation a lot of times does not speak English, but if you meet teenagers and people in their early 20s, oftentimes they do, and they're very receptive of Americans. They're very friendly. I will tell you though, again, I love Prague. Prague is beautiful, but the country gets warmer as you get throughout the rest of the country. So I will always tell you, your better experiences are on the paths less traveled or further away from well-worn paths that people don't always travel on. So that's actually one of the things that Ruth and I were looking to try to partner on, maybe in the coming year, was maybe having kind of a collaboration together and working on developing a great curriculum together. So.
Well, I love that question. Frankly, I don't think you ever have enough time. So, and so anyway, all right. And next question is, to what extent are IPAs permeating Europe? Are they anywhere near as popular as here in the States?
I have something to say about that. I don't know if I would say, well, it's kind of funny. And this has been going on for years. I noticed everybody wants to brew what everybody's brewing on the other side. So, when we started doing, Wes is shaking his head. Like when we started doing our tours, there was a big interest in, trying to brew Belgian beers here in the States. And then we would go over to Europe and all the brewers would visit and they'd be like, this is my IPA, or this is my, whatever, and it's funny because it's not the same. I think, and this is generalizing, this is very generalized, but my experience has been as Americans, we tend to supersize things. So we'll do a lot of, super hoppy, whatever IPAs. And then, but things are just different in Europe. And I remember going to a Planet Beer festival in Paris, actually. And there were brewers from all over the place. And there was a brewer from, I'm not going to say where they were from. They weren't from France, but they were from somewhere else. And and she was a brewer that was kind of well known, and I was like excited to meet her, and we're talking, and she's like, do you want to try my West Coast IPA? And I'm like, yeah, I can't wait to try it. And I tried it, and it was a giant malt bomb, and it was a nice beer, but it wasn't what I would even call an IPA. And maybe that's because my palate's burned out as an American. I don't know, but it's a different. People want to do things, but I think it's a different perspective of things, and we look at things differently. So I think, yeah, they're trying to brew. Everybody's trying to brew everybody else's things and brew what's popular. And there's also people that brew because they're trying to market, and there's people that brew what they like. There's one of the brewers we visit in France, Daniel Thierry. One of the things I love about him is he always say, I brew what I like. I brew what I like to brew. I'm not worried about whatever. I brew what I like. And I think that's, but there's definitely people. Yeah. I think there's more and more IPAs in Europe, but whether they're what the IPAs we're used to is a whole other story.
In Czech Republic, they call them IPAs. So they don't call IPA, they call them IPAs. And so it is becoming popular. But it's funny, just like what Ruth was saying, it's always about what the other one's doing. The grass seems to be always greener. And so the same way that like over here in the US, we'll say, wow, we're going to try a Czech style Pilsner or a Czech lager. I can tell you, I've only had 2 I've ever tasted here in the US that I enjoyed. 2. That's it. I've always been disappointed. I always go optimistic, and then I leave like, okay. So that being said, like when over there in Czech Republic, it is they will try the IPAs, and the IPAs I've tried over there do not taste the same as IPAs over here. So what you're tasting is someone's attempt to reproduce that. I will tell you the same way, and this is kind of a funny story. The gentleman here, Chris, who owns Green Bench Brewing, he was actually their brewery imports more Czech malt than any brewery in the U.S. So the Czech government actually helped to sponsor him going through to Czech Republic to learn more about Czech brewing. And when he came back, the things he learned really, really revolutionized how his beers started coming out, and they are amazing now. And it's amazing the switch, the things he learned over there, and the quality of his beer since he's come back. I've actually started promoting him on our social media channels, et cetera, because I'm so proud of what he's doing over there. It's really amazing. It really is.
I've learned at restaurants and tap rooms, I want to know what they're known for, and that's what I want to taste. Their experimental beers, if they want me to give them an opinion, that's great, but I want to know. I want to taste what they're known for, what draws them, what made them famous, because chances are they do that fantastically.
Yeah.
All right, next question. Are there inflatable packages to transport your beer in your luggage? I saw a lot of comments about socks.
There are.
Who wants to take that one first?
I can. There are. There. I don't have one next to me, but there's actually a company we were looking at. There's a couple things. You could use the wine sacks that are already just bubble wrap, but there are these. They look like the wine sack, but they have a little hand pump that pumps into it, and they blow up in cells around it, so you can use that. There's a suitcase, a special suitcase. I think Bill McPhee was on. I don't know if he's still on, but they have one of them, and I can't remember the name of it. But they're made with foam, like foam cutouts to put bottles in that you can pack and send it on. And socks are a big thing. We use a Ty is posting buy an inflatable doll. I'm not going to go there. But socks and bubble wrap and things. You're not going to find a lot of bubble wrap in Europe, Belgium, France. Reusable stuff is big because sustainability is a big issue nowadays in tourism. In fact, our barge company just got a whole new engine so that because of this, but things like that, you're not going to find as much of. So if you have it, you need to bring it with you. Yeah, but there are blow up ones, and they're pretty cool actually.
Wes, did you have anything to add to that?
Well, when I travel, it's a little different. So when I go over there, I always bring gifts for family. So because I bring gifts there, I always have like a bunch of luggage that's with me, right? So that's my weight for what I know to bring back. So I reuse all my, like she was saying, like all my bubble wrap, etc. Over there in Czech Republic, you have to know it's bublinky is the word for bubble wrap, bublinky. We will go over with a luggage that has, believe it or not, Czechs are really big fans of good whiskey and bourbon. And so we like to bring our bourbon and whiskey over to our family over there. And we know that because it's water weight in glass, we roughly have an estimate of how much we can bring back as well. So.
Excellent.
I was trying to find the name, and I apologize for not seeing it in the chat. I can't scroll backwards far enough. Best tip I saw was throw away your clothes and fill it up with beer.
Clothes work for wrapping too, though.
Yeah, I thought that was great. All right, next question. What's the cost of your beer tour in the Czech Republic? So, full disclosure here, Wes.
$3,800 is for the cost for the brew tour in Czech Republic. It covers your lodging, transportation, dedicated guide, a dedicated translator slash guide slash translator, and a dedicated driver slash bellman as well. So it's actually it's one heck of a deal. Everything's all inclusive except for the flight there and back for the most part, and evening events that you'd like to do. Everything else is included.
So when is that trip?
So actually, we're providing those tours monthly. So I have one almost every month, starting actually in March. We just don't go from December to March typically because those are just really cold months over there, and tourists probably are not going to want to go. The castles are shut down. It's not as interesting to go to at that time. But yeah, typically we'll open up, let's say around like April or so. And then I have to look at it specifically, but everything's on the website. So if you go to passlesstravel.com, 2 L's in travel, you'll see it and you'll see everything through there for availability. And we love to have our groups. We actually have small intimate groups. So we typically like to keep our groups to 14 or less. In order to be able to get into the spots that are there that are really going to, you'll be able to enjoy them without overwhelming the kitchens, and you'll be able to have this really authentic experience that you might not have with a larger group. Then if we have like 20 or more, then we go to different areas because of the group size. So like I said before, when Ruth was talking on it, depends on your group size, depends what you're trying to get out of it. Additionally, we also offer some revisions off of our tour. So if you see something on the tour that you don't like or want to be changed, just talk to us and let us know. We'll make a pivot and make something work for you. It's fine. It's not a problem.
So Wes, and I may have missed it, but I didn't hear it either. How many days is your package?
Oh, 6 days and 6 nights. So we get there on a Sunday and we go all the way to the following Saturday. And then you would leave on that Sunday following to come home, and that was our package. That's really what we made for working people, so that they have a week off. We know over here in the U.S. we've got a high success culture, work, and a lot of people don't want to have more time off. So we designed that tour specifically to fit people who have 1 week they can spend. And you're probably going to be tired and jet lagged when you got back, but maybe have a day extra for that. But we try to make that fit to people's daily lives.
All right. Again, get your questions in. These are going pretty quick. Now, this one's an interesting one. What do you recommend for a visit to Rodenbach? So since I'm pretty sure that's in your neck of the woods, Ruth, would you take that question?
Yeah, so I think I don't know about individual tours to Rodenbach. I think they might be offering them. I would say look on the website. Look on the website and see what's available. I would imagine there's something there for some kind of tours. I don't know. Honestly, I don't know, because everything I do is like private groups. So we're a private group tour. I put a specific time, but I think they might have open groups now, since they're part of that whole group with Palm and everything. So check on the website, unless you're, going with a group, and depending on the experience you're looking for. If you're looking for just a tour and maybe a tasting, then find your own thing. Our special dinner is something I arrange specifically. I work with Rodenbach. I work with the caterers. It's a whole, it's a whole thing. So if you're looking for that, then you need to look for a tour operator or somebody that's doing something like that.
So it sounds like Sierra Nevada nearby, you can just pop in there during business hours and take a tour. Rodenbach's nothing like that.
Yeah, I wouldn't know. No, it's not like, I don't think it's an all day thing. I think a lot of stuff in Belgium, now that they're starting, some of the breweries are starting to do, tours on specific days, but you have to go online and reserve in advance to make sure, because I guess, they hire guides specifically for that. They're not necessarily all working, all day. And it's not like, like Sierra Nevada, people are coming in constantly, whatever. It's not, it's a little different in Belgium. It's just, that's not the way it is. Certain places have specific, like Dodola does I think it's Sunday afternoons, they do an English speaking tour, whatever. And so, but you have to go online, I think, to reserve that, or maybe you can show up. I don't know, but the pub's open at least on this, so that you can go there. But it's not like Rodenbach has a tasting room that the bar is open that you can hang out if nothing's going on. So depending on the brewery, the best thing, is to go and check online. Yeah, Thomas is saying Palm tour. Yeah, so Palm and Rodenbach, the same. Yeah, do a Sunday. Yeah. Is writing 2:00 on Sunday, for a Dodola. So those are the things. But again, even though the website says this is the specific time, no matter who it is, you always double check, because people go away. In fact, I've traveled with the people from Dodola, so I can tell you they go away. But they're usually home on a Sunday to make sure for the thing. But different places, right? Right, Strice, we do Strice, right? But again, I'm in touch with Urban and say, hey, we're coming over, set us up, whatever. But there's places that will do it, but you need to set it up. It's not, like here, you can go, like you said, the Sierra Nevada, you can go to, Stone or whatever, and they have the 1:00 tour, the 3:00 tour. It's just, it's different. It's different in Belgium. So,
Well, would you say your 5 most important points were research? It sounds like follow-up might come into that too.
That's in there. That's it. And, the other thing is a point to be made, and I don't know if I made this before, is, Urban rocks. Yes, Doug. Thomas is saying about Urban. Belgium, the beer is strong. And they like to present the presentation, the glasses, a lot of places. It's not like here where we get these tasters. It's full pours in a lot of places. You don't have to drink everything that's put in front of you. Remember that. And remember, water is a good thing. And in Belgium, they have a special glass that matches the water as well, of course. But there's always going to be another good beer coming up. So, be wary of that. This stuff goes down really easy, and it's really fun, but, something to be aware of. It's a little different, drinking 8, 9, 10% beers. Yes, Wes.
I'd like to add on that. So in Czech Republic, culture is very warm. It's a drinking culture, very hospitable. So first couple times that I went there, I had to learn a lesson the hard way. When you drink your drink, you're automatically refilled. How it is. It's just how it is. So I just drink at my own pace, but thinking, I'll wait till I get my next drink. Then next thing I know, I was poured again and again and again. Then I realized after a while, how do you stop that? So I asked my wife, I said, hey, what's going on here? How do I stop this from happening? And she goes, listen, don't drink your drink all the way. Leave a little bit in the bottom and they won't pour you. And that is actually part of Czech culture. So you leave a little bit in the bottom if you don't want to be repoured. and that's your way of saying I'm good for now, and I don't want to be reported, and they won't report you. If they do, then they're being rude. So that's your way of politely and respectfully saying I've had enough for now. I'll be again when I want some more. So lessons learned, though.
Well, what a good tip, though, and I think it's great because they do seem to have a culture for understanding that. I know when I was at Chimay and other places, and they'd pour you a great big glass, and and I was dying to drink the whole thing, and they would say, don't feel like you've got to drink it all, and it's kind of like, but I want to. But it's great, and I will have to say I guess that's one of the downsides because I traveled last time I was in Belgium, a couple of places the last few days, and I was driving and navigating and trying to stay on schedule, and it's not as much fun as when somebody else is driving for you and you can concentrate on what you need to and maybe enjoy what you're there for.
We say no thinking, just drinking.
Got it.
All right. A next good question comes from Edward. Edward asks, are there any meaderies on any of the trips?
You want to say that one first?
Not on mine yet. I have people requesting cider tours as well. We've started to add in distilleries. We always do. We've visited Geneva places for years in Belgium and Netherlands, and now in France we're doing a couple of interesting distilleries, but no mead yet. Not on mine.
No,
Wes?
we don't have any meads. Again, so things are changing over there. So I'll tell you something. So we'll go places. Again, it's about the culture, and you go, especially when you go out the evenings to Hasbukas and these different local places that are always happy to share their best with you. Always. And I'll tell you something though, that Czechs, if you own property, you have fruit trees over there. And why is that? Well, in Czech Republic, they have public stills. So the government there will charge to distill your spirits. So what they do is they will actually go and they have buckets. They'll collect their own fruit. Seski is a type of plum there. Yapko is apple. Hrušky is a pear. And they'll make all these different fruits, whatever. I have one that when I get sick, I call Divisna. It's actually made from a flower. But it's a distilled. It's made from plums, and it has infused flour into it. So it's medicinal, and these things are things you can't buy. They call it domací, which means homemade. They share it with you, so it's a gift. They always tell you it's a gift you can't buy. You can buy the moonshine, the called plum brandy, Slivovitsa. You can do that, but it's never the same as the homemade. And a lot of places we go, they love to share their best with you. I mentioned before the plums. They see the people come in there. They want you to experience this. So I always tell people when you go to places, if you're going out at night, just be careful of your intake because it sneaks up on you sometimes. So again, no thinking, just drinking. But no
driving.
Yeah, no one
is driving.
That sounds like the voice of experience.
Yeah. I've been there, and because I was the American before, and they wanted to go there, and they hey, do you have us one more, please, with me? So I said, and I knew it was not a good idea. I did it.
Sound like a setup. All right. So what I hear is you guys don't know any meads. If anybody knows any meaderies in the chat, please add it in there. I think that would be good. Let's move on. Next question. How far does the U.S. dollar go in the Czech Republic? Wes, I think that one's yours.
Pretty good. Pretty well. So the right now it's hovering between 20 and 24 crowns. Korunu is the Czech korunu is the currency. they're not under the euro. So it actually goes pretty good. It's very favorable. And even right now, I believe for Ruth's trips, are they under euro right now? I don't know.
The euro's about 1.08. It's gone up a little bit, but it's still pretty good. It's,
Yeah.
reasonable.
So right, if you're considering a tour and you have the money now to be able to do that, the timing is fantastic.
Yeah.
There has never been a better time to go than right now. And that's the truth of it. It really is, because it's not crowded right now. You can go there for fairly inexpensive rates. You can really enjoy yourself. It now is the time to soak it in and really enjoy it.
So that's from the heart, Wes, right? We're not selling.
No, that is 100% from the heart. Whether you go with Ruth or another provider, or whether you go anywhere, it doesn't matter. That is just where it is right now. It's the truth. If you're listen, we all make family. A lot of us have families, and we have things. We have budgets, and et cetera. And right now is just a really good fiscal time for returns. With the Czech crown, with the euro, it's really equivalent right now. So right now is a really good time to be able to make those decisions. And there are a lot of places that were maybe hit from when things were locked down, or now have rebuilt themselves, and it's back. They've had time to recover, but the people aren't there as frequently as they were before, though. So it's really a great time to go there. It really is. You're going to get a special experience, maybe one of those once in a lifetime experiences that you may never have in your life.
All right, we have got none more questions. We're at the bottom of the hour, so we're going to have to make these a little bit quicker. Nathan asked, do some beers just taste better at the cellar level where they're in progress in aging, or is there an aroma effect at playing in the surrounding with the enormous barrels? In other words, do they actually taste better in the brewery, or is that just the effect of being there? Who wants to run with that one?
I think the experience of, anytime you're in a place and you're in the moment, and it may not taste better, but it tastes special. It's giving you that experience. We've done a few. We did a beer tour with Bob Sylvester from Saint Somewhere. He co-hosted with us, and he went over in advance and brewed with Daniel Thierry, and then when we went through. We tasted out of the tanks. I mean, the beer wasn't ready yet, but you know what? The experience of being able to do that, it's I think it's experiential. I think sometimes tasting out of the tanks is amazing. And when it's an experience. I would just say that it's an experience, and a unique experience is sometimes as cool as an amazing taste. How's that?
So in Czech Republic, they have different types of beer. They classify it very well in there. Not only they have like lager, slightly lager, or you have your different, you name it, across the board. They have lots of craft beer there too. But I will tell you this. They also have nefiltrovaný, which means unfiltered, and nepasteurizovaný, which means unpasteurized beer. So you'll never get an unfiltered, unpasteurized beer here in the U.S. At least not one made by a brewery who's actually producing and probably knows their stuff very well. I will tell you, over there, it's actually sold over the counter in places. You can get these unpasteurized, unfilterized beers there. They're not made to ship out of the country, but they are fantastic. They are very good. And I will tell you, again, getting back to that experience that Ruth was talking about, when we tour the brewery of Pilsner Urquell, and we're down there in the cellars, there's a smell, there's a feeling there. You realize, I'll tell you, I go back to the ice rooms. They have a room there that's 30 feet tall, that is 30 feet wide, that they used in their brewing process. They would drop ice through the hole in the top, and they had grooves set in the floors to be able to hit that ice cold water right where they wanted to go, to be able to cool down for the brewing process, from hot side to cold side brewing. And I will tell you that this is really amazing. And when I was there, because of it, I was speaking in English and then I was speaking in Czech, and the guy actually was trying to tell me have some more, and had ended up their half-liter pours had me drink 4 of those things in about 20 minutes. So, yeah, but it was a fantastic experience, let me tell you.
Well, I think we're actually experiencing kind of answering that question right now. I mean, we're having some fantastic beer, Pilsner Urquell. We're having Chimay Grand Reserve, and I'm having it here in the studio, which is in the basement of my residence. It is totally different to have a Grand Reserve at Chimay. Even though it may be the same, there's just something different about the entire experience. So I think it goes back to our very first question as to why do beer travel? Because it adds a whole nother dimension to the experience. You're not just drinking, you're understanding, you're experiencing, you're hearing, and it's like you get all your senses activated. Anyway, that's my thoughts. We'll go
You're
on.
right. You're experiencing the beer as it was meant to be.
There you go.
Really. Yeah.
So Keith asks, does each bar still only serve beer from one brewery? Great question.
In which country? So in Czech Republic, oftentimes that's how it is. Yes. So if you're in Pilsen, you're going to have. Sorry, if you're in Prague, Prague is coming to age more, and they're having more of these bars you can go to where you can get multiple beers from a single brewery. But outside of Prague, once you start traveling through the country, typically if you go to a brewery, you're going to have or a pub, you're typically going to have one beer, and you typically have it. You'll look by and you'll just know from the umbrellas that are sitting outside of the on the picnic tables when you go by. So you just know what it is, and more times than not, you'll see everything in that city has the same type of. So, and I'll tell you some great feedback. So Chris is the head brewer at Green Bench, and he was the gentleman who went to Czech Republic and was sponsored by the Czech government, and et cetera. And his thing was, I asked him what was the number one takeaway from going over there, and he told me that it wasn't necessarily the beer. He thinks that German beer is better in his opinion. It's his opinion on it. It's okay. He likes German beer, and he's just cleaner. But he says the one thing that the Germans don't have is the culture. And he was saying that the culture is very different in Czech, and he says that from going from one place to another, you get to have. It's almost like it's not as standardized in how much CO2 they're putting into it, or how much there's the lines. There's so much factors that go into the beer, but it's not always the same spot. So when we go to the places that has the best beer, that has the best pours. But I will tell you that that was one thing that he brought up was the fact that the place we go to, it's the culture again. Sorry, getting back to it. We're talking about the place with the umbrellas and having beer at every spot. But if you go to different cities, you will have beer at every different city, a different beer. And that's actually why we recommend going through the entire country, because you get to experience a lot of the different beers from different regionals.
Yeah, I want to add a comment. I see Ty and Pam Cowell mentioned the difference between a corked 750 bottle, and I presume they're referring to smaller packages. And I thought it was interesting. When I was at the Saison DuPont a little more than a year ago, I asked Olivier Didica, who's the head brewer, and he grew up at their brewery, and I said, he was talking about the different packages because they have cans now, they have the small bottles, and they have the 750s. I said, which do you like? And he said, oh, by far the 750, because it's bottle conditioned, it has more airspace, and it's a different profile as it develops. So I'm sure it is different in the brewery. It's different in a big bottle versus a small bottle. All right, next question. We got 6 left, and looks like not quite 40 minutes unless there are a few more added. So MJ asks, what's the cost of your tours, Ruth, and where all do they go?
Okay. The Beercation cruises on the barge. This year, we typically usually do 2, and then if there's a private special co-hosted one or whatever, we'll add a third in the fall. That's for the fall. So this year we're doing Amsterdam to Bruges, so Belgium and Netherlands, and that's I think around 3,900, just under 3,900 per person, double occupancy. And then we're doing a Bruges round trip, all in Belgium. And that's the one we're co-hosting with Pete Schlossberg. That's going to be beer and chocolate. We're pretty excited about that. We're doing a lot of different, we're doing chocolate museums. We're doing beer and chocolate pairings. Pete's doing some workshops on the barge, visiting breweries. I'm actually really excited. One of the things we're doing on that is just outside of Bruges, or in Bruges, but not in the historic center, just outside, is a brewery called Fort La Panne. And Christoph, the brewer there, brews his own, chocolate beer with chocolate malts. But he just recently, I ran into him, and he had just got the contract from Dominique Persson, who's like the rock star of chocolate from the chocolate line in Bruges, had given him the contract to brew his beer. So he brought over, chocolate nibs for him to work with to brew. So we're doing an event with him comparing the different beers. Pete's got a few things up his sleeve that are going to be pretty cool. So it's a really unique itinerary, lots of different brewery visits, lots of different beer and chocolate related. So yeah, I'm excited about that. That one is $39.60 per person, double occupancy. And then the Belgium France one is the last one. So they go back to back. So sometimes we have people that sail with us back to back and just do one right after the other. And so that one is where we do Chimay and we do Rodenbach, and that one is $38.60 per person, double occ. And then and those are week-long tours from Sunday to Sunday this year. And then we have I don't have the pricing on my Asheville. It's on the website. It's a weekend tour. I think it's around $800 or $900 per person, double occupancy. And our tours are pretty fairly inclusive. Most meals, tours, accommodations. If we're going out beer hunting on our own at night, then you're buying your own beers, but pretty much a lot of the rest of it's included. And then we have 2 special, our Provence Dreams tours, which are wine and spirit focused in the summer, but those are 9 nights. And we stay in a chateau in the middle of a vineyard just outside of Châteauneuf-du-Pape for a week, and then 2 nights in Avignon. But I do have some beer related things on those. And one of the things we're doing that I'm totally jazzed about is, it took a little bit of work, but I talked a winery that has a Michelin starred restaurant in Châteauneuf-du-Pape, the wine capital, into doing a beer versus wine 5-course Michelin starred dinner. The chef had a 2-star Michelin restaurant in Brussels, and he's opening a new concept restaurant in Brussels, but he has a 1-star Michelin in Châteauneuf-du-Pape. So there's beer on that, and that's about $5,400 a person, just under $5,400 a person, double occupancy for the 9 nights. And it's tours all over, and wineries and breweries and distilleries and art and culture and biking and all kinds of different opportunities in the south of France, including in Avignon, going to those awesome beer bars where I turn all those wine drinkers into craft beer drinkers.
I'd like to take a few people on that trip.
Yeah. It's really funny because I was there with the tourist board in September, and I was with all the wine tour operators. It was a wine tour operator fan trip. And there's one guy from London. You'd think a guy from the UK would drink beer or whatever. And he's like, nah. And I dragged him over there, and I gave him an entire beer education between myself and the bartenders at the place. And he messaged me. I goes, I'm over here. I'm drinking this beer thanks to you and whatever. And I was like, so happy, so.
All right, we've got 15 minutes and 6 questions, so we got to keep them short at this point. This ought to be an easy one. I'm pretty sure it's for you, Ruth. MJ asks, what is a barge?
What is a barge? A barge is a canal boat. It's I describe it as kind of like being on how would I say? Like being on your friend's vacation home on the water. And you saw that video, how close we are in the canals. They're made to go down the canals. They're small. Our barge that we use typically holds a maximum of 22 guests plus us and our staff. So we have, all the rooms have ensuite, bathrooms with showers and toilets and everything. It's nothing fancy, but very comfortable. We have our own chef on board. We have a dining room. We have decks outside to hang out on. We have living spaces. I think you have some pictures in there in the stuff I sent you earlier.
Yeah, I'm going to bring it up.
Yeah. It's funny because, depending how old you are, you may remember back to when there was a garbage embargo and problem in New York, and they had the garbage barge. And we first started doing this. We had to explain, no, it's not a place that you keep garbage. It's actually it's a canal boat that was redone for passengers, really. So that's one of the barges we use. That's the FEEP, and you can see the little deck in the front. We have a deck out back, and then I don't know if you have the picture of us sitting inside. That's the lounge area. So we have nice tables. We have another big table off on the side, and a little bar area. That's in honor bar.
There's
so
Mike.
Just, there's Mike. Yeah. So, I think that's our first day on board, just kind of going over things. So, really comfortable, casual, relaxed place. We have a downstairs is the kitchen. Is a trip site link to, okay. So Janet says she put a link to the FEEP somewhere. So it's a really relaxed, fun way to travel. Yeah.
Good. Thank you. That was a thorough answer. All right. Next question. Wes, the website has, Saturday to Sunday, but no specific dates.
So you must be talking about the Czech Lager University then.
And let me get your camera up there.
Yeah. So
there we go.
When you go there, if you will hover over the calendar date, it will give you the start date and it will run everything throughout. So when you actually log on to it, what I put into the conversation earlier was some booking links. So those are booking links, not the actual website. The website is pathslesstravel.com with 2 L's. But if you put the booking links in there that you went to before, you'll be able to see them. And when you click through the actual dates or availability, you'll hover over it. The first date will go and it will highlight what's available for you. If you have any questions, you can also I'll give you my personal email address. It's Wes. I'll put it in the conversation.
Why don't you type it in the chat, Wes?
Yeah.
All right, next question. This one goes to Wes. Wes, how common are Lucre side pour faucets in the Czech Republic? Whoa, let's see. It moved on me. Sorry. Wes, how common are the Lucre side pour faucets in Czech? Have you been to the Human Robot in Philadelphia? They have several Czech Pilsners with various foam types. I love that.
Yes, so they have different pours in Czech, utilizing the Lucre faucet, which is pretty much a ball valve that allows you to control the flow, and it has a piece that's in there that allows you to also control the oxygenation, literally. So when you do that though, we actually include that in our Czech Lager University as well. It's a certificated program. We actually have a Tapster class utilizing that Lucre faucet in that course. That is very common, And it's kind of funny when I talked to Chris, again, I keep going back to him because he got to experience something very few people do over there. And I wanted very much so to get his intake on that. And he told me very specifically, he was, and everywhere, liquid faucets are taking over everywhere here in the U.S. When it comes to Czech lagers, Czech style lagers, and Czech style pilsners. And if you don't have one, if you have a brewery, I recommend highly in getting one because you can control the flow so much better, and you can have different types of Pladinka, Mulka, and you can start controlling the types of flows that you have, very foamy or less foamy. And like I said before, the beer is not meant to be drank without having a decent amount of head. Some people prefer to have almost entire foam over there in Czech Republic. It's interesting. So you can just choose how you want your beer poured.
And you've got some beer left. That's what I'm impressed with.
Well, a little bit.
All right. Next question comes from Deborah. Deborah asks to Ruth, can I get more information on that Michelin star dinner you mentioned in the chat?
Well, that probably came before we did that. But yeah, that Michelin star dinner is the one I was talking about earlier in Provence. So that's on the Provence thing. It's part of the Provence Dreams tour on the 8th.
Ruth, if you want,
June.
I'll do a follow-up email to everybody.
I can send that out.
There?
Yeah, I'll do a link for that. That's part of that tour. There's, I think, 3 rooms available on that tour, but actually it's a whole day event, a day at the winery, a blending session, a tasting session, and then back home and then back over for the Michelin starred dinner. And I think, I didn't say this before, but it was really cool when I met the chef and I found out he was from Belgium. I said, have you ever done any beer paired dinners? And then he's like, oh, beer in Belgium. And he's like, well, Cantillon. And I'm like, of course. And so, we're doing this and the wine people are looking, but, so I knew he was the right guy to work with. I knew he was the one to make this happen with. So, we're pretty excited about it. Yeah. So yeah, I'll give you a link to send out about that tour.
So Deborah will follow up with that. Sorry. Peggy asks, can you get around Belgium via public transportation? I think, Ruth, that one's yours.
You can to certain places. You could certainly, get from, Antwerp to Ghent to Bruges to Brussels, and see places like that. Doug, you and I were talking earlier about, trying to get out to Wesleyderen, maybe not so easy. Getting to Dodola, you're taking a train to here and then another train to there and then walking or whatever. So depends where you want to go. There's certainly, if you're not specific on what you want to see and where you want to go, and you're okay with seeing the things that are within the walls of the cities that you can get to, you can do a lot. You can do a real lot. You can get to, a lot of breweries that are within the town walls, a lot of pubs with their, and sites, certainly. So you can do a lot. You can't do everything.
Yeah, I would have to add to it, if you cherry pick, and that's what I did. I had appointments at Brasserie DuPont, Brasserie Bone, or the Bone Brewery, and then Chimay. And the public transportation, I guess Bone would have been the only one that I could have gotten to without a car, which was very expensive. So, yeah. And disappointing because I couldn't enjoy everything that they offered me at Chimay.
you need to, when you're planning, think about your budget. Even, have a travel agency outside the tour companies. And we see this with a lot of people that are just doing, for example, a general cruise, right? Just a Royal Caribbean cruise or whatever. And they're saying, oh, I found this deal and it's only this much to go on here. You need to consider you're going to eat. You're going to want to go on tours. You're going to want to do all this other stuff. And then you got to add that in. So when you're planning a vacation, regardless of what kind of vacation or where it is you're going, you need to think about those things. What is my actual budget to spend? I want to buy beer to take home. I want to have a Michelin dinner, or I want to have a nice dinner, or I don't care about that stuff. I'm happy to eat the frites off the stands, which you definitely have to do as an experience in Belgium. You'll be missing something if you don't have, a friture experience. But you need to think about all these things that you're going to want to do and allow that in your budget. And then you're comparing that. And, I'm going on a group tour. All this is included or not included, whatever, and not, and what kind of places you want to stay in. If you're staying in hotels. And always, if you're doing an organized tour of any sort, when you're flying in, plan to arrive at least a day in advance, because stuff happens. And the other thing to think about, public transportation, the trains especially, and in France, are strikes. And the nice thing in France is that when they go on strike, they tell you, they're polite about it. And so there's a schedule. You can find a schedule. of what the train strikes are. And so in advance, and then certain trains that may be working or not. But whether that you can count on them 100% to get you places, maybe not always. So insurance and secondary planning.
Jeff put in the chat that some of the good breweries in Belgium are in quite rural areas, and I would have to agree. I mean, Ruth, you've been there far more times than I have, but I could get to, I was in Brussels, that's where I was based out of, and I could get to Cantillon, and I could get to Beaune. Those were the two main ones I wanted to get to. The others, which I also wanted to get to, Chimay and DuPont, I had to rent a car.
Right.
So I could have easily been entertained, I'm sure, in Brussels. But if you're cherry picking,
what's on your bucket? Yeah, what's on that bucket list? Yeah. And and here's the thing: if you're going to make that trip, and it is your bucket list trip, and you're maybe only going once or twice or whatever you're going, the point is, if you're going over there for that, plan it and make it happen. That's not the time to cheap out. You're going already. You're all the way over there. Find arrangements to make it happen, and make it happen so that you can enjoy it. Get a driver. Do what you have to do to get there and experience it the way you should experience it, because that's why you're going.
We are almost at the end, and as I warned you, when the 2 hours runs out, it cuts off whether I like it or not. So, Ruth, the last question is for you. Who else was up when the early morning barge video was taken?
Who else was that? There was a bunch of people. We have a lot of early risers on the thing, and of course the captain. And what's nice is you can pop onto the. I think that one was like 7:30 in the morning, and we have guests that get up and whatever. And some guests get up early and go walking out in town or whatever before we take off. They always know what time the barge is taking off. But what's nice is you can go up to the captain, where the captain is. I'm blanking out on the name for the wheelhouse. I'm halfway down the beer. The wheelhouse. You can go up there and sit with the captain and watch from their view as well, which is really, and just talk to them while they're riding. So quite a few people get up to watch it. I don't always, but but it's awesome. It really is a peaceful, amazing.
Mine's empty.
Experience. Yeah.
And we're almost at the bitter end. First of all, Wes, I want to thank you for taking the time. Wouldn't have got an introduction without you, Ruth. And we keep bumping into each other, whether it's in Belgium or somewhere here in the U.S. I think that's great. This has been so much fun. I think, travel is just great. It's eye-opening, but it's unique when it has something to do with beer, because you can, if you go to a restaurant in a foreign country, you can't bring that home, but you can bring one of these home and you can have it and you can share stories. So as we wrap up here, we've got less than 30 seconds, but is there a comment anybody wants to say in closing?
Thank you for having us. And cheers.
Cheers.
Wes, any comments?
Memories never die. There you go. We're about making memories.
All right. We'll do the Zoom for anybody that hasn't had enough. I'll put that link there in the chat. Hopefully that will work okay. And we'll see everybody in just a few seconds, and you can ask some other questions for those that can make it. Again, Wes, Ruth, this is fantastic. And for those of you that watch these programs regularly, our next